Hello, and welcome to the DoneJS contributors meeting. Today is Friday, January 20th, 2017. Today we have Adam.
Hey there.
Julian. No Mike. Okay, Justin.
Anything is possible.
Kevin.
Hello.
Matthew.
Hey, hey.
And myself, Chasing. We're going to get started by going through statuses for the past week, and we'll just go through the core team. I'll go ahead and start. So this past week, I was working on organizing a lot of our presentation material so that we can apply to meetups and start evangelizing more this year. I also updated DoneJS.com to actually have the upcoming events on the community page. So that's all deployed and working correctly now. Next week, I will be working on more conference and meetup stuff, but I'm hoping to focus more on the website. So stuff that we've gone over previously, improving the CanJS homepage and stuff like that. So that's my status. Julian, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I worked this week on the Steel Cache Bust extension. We had it, and I moved it into core, and maybe we improved it a little bit, and it also should work with Steel tools. And I also, but not worked this week, last week, I think I worked with Justin, or Justin worked, and I looked him doing the stuff. It's about can stash. It was about can stash. It was about.
It was about attributes can take the inner template.
Yeah. So this was last week. So yeah, that's for me.
Cool. Do you have anything planned for next week?
Yeah, finished cache bust, working with Steel tools, so that Justin can use it for maybe his can connect stuff. And I want to finish that can stash stuff. I have to write tests and have to clean up code. So that is for next week.
Cool. Sounds good. Justin.
So this week I've been mostly working on the Bitcentive guide and helping get can validate underway. I also, in spare time, worked on a little parser that I will probably talk about later.
Cool. What do you have planned for next week?
Next week is the Bitcentive guide. I really want to get that done, or at least a rough draft finally done.
Cool. Sounds good. Kevin.
I don't have too much that's interesting this week. I worked on upgrading the Place My Order guide and app to DoneJS 1.0. There's still a couple last bugs and issues to work through, so that's my plan for next week.
Cool. Matthew?
Yeah, I'm also working on DoneJS 1.0. I've been working on a chat guide, running into a couple of bugs. I'm going to release Steel 1.1 next Monday. Don't like doing that kind of stuff on Friday, but Kevin had an improvement for Steel Clone that will be part of that. And so next week, once I get done with this chat stuff, I'll probably work on getting the automated tests running in DoneJS again for the new stuff.
Sweet. Awesome. Okay. I think that's everyone on the core team. I don't know if we're counting Adam in. You're working full time on DoneJS stuff right now. Does anyone have topics before we go to the forum post that they want to bring up?
I did want to say, I think Matthew and Kevin, the plan is for the end of next week that we should be pretty close to having like the guides working again.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think the plan is we get the guides done. I've noticed Kevin and I've to some degree been filing issues on like possible improvements, and then we'll probably move to improvements And yeah, once we get improvements done, everything works, then that'll be a release.
Cool. Awesome. So like, I mean, in some ways next week, if you really know what you're doing, CanJS or DoneJS might start feeling much more stable.
Yeah.
1.0. Yeah. You can follow what, what we're doing. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Anything else before we go to topics? All right. So I posted first, and this isn't necessarily my topic, but we started talking about having a new templating syntax for CanJS that would be, I think, essentially a replacement for can stash. And this is something that Justin brought up earlier this week. So I wanted to bring it up as a topic. Justin, I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit and why this is on your mind and your current thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, I made two proposals. Let me share my screen real quick here. Okay. So the first issue I created was just I wanted to start a discussion, kind of like what the next version of Stash would look like. We kind of had a discussion internally, so I guess I'm going to start actually from there. I think the discussion internally about what we should do more or less coalesced around kind of two ideas. One is two ideas that we're going to work through. One is a new templating syntax that leverages a lot of the existing code base, so that we're not going to have to reinvent any hard code. I kind of say that ironically because I did just invent some hard code for this to make this easier, but it didn't require it. I didn't have to write the parser that I'm going to talk about later. But so basically something that's going to, it doesn't necessarily have to look like Stash, but it's more, it should address a lot of Stash's issues, and but should be easy to write. I think that's the, easy to build, something we can turn over. And then I created another issue, but I closed it just because it was getting off the rails a little bit, which was like a kind of what would be we can do anything we want kind of ideas that I want to start working through. So here was a example of anything I wanted, which was just, hey, let's take, in some ways I was taking the ideas of React and trying to go one token less so that you didn't have to wrap it with curlies, and this was kind of an embedded, slightly different version, a related version of JavaScript. And then other ideas that were kind of similar got posted, but I think that's the other idea that we're kind of accepting. And my plan is post DoneJS 1.0, I think there's really 2.5 issues that I really want to, or 3 issues. I think there's 3 big weaknesses with CanJS that I want to address as quickly as possible. One is Stash, and this also includes, and maybe I'll move these up to the beginning, some of just the issues that I've seen with Stash that I want to address. There's just like a lot of weird syntax that you have to learn. If you want to pass a function, you have to use @ and instead of variables, it's like this implicit context that you have to walk through. There's a lot of issues. I think that people really struggle with it. There's a lot of different ways of doing the same thing. This is the kind of stuff one of the things I want to fix is just fixing Stash, making something that's much more simple, easy to learn. Does the same kind of stuff though. The other things, and this is just kind of a side topic, which I think that we want to address, is making it so it's easier to assemble connections, custom connections. And then I want to make it related to that is I want to make a better set algebra, so that's easier to make custom set algebras. Those are, I think, unless someone has some other things that they think are as important as those. Those are the things that I think are the biggest challenges if someone's writing a CanJS application. So this one though, Stash is probably my priority, mostly because you write a lot of code in your template engine. You know, your models and set algebras, you know, those are confusing and hard to understand, like how to build it. But once it's there, you're kind of done with it. Like I don't. Once models are kind of in place, I'm not really screwing with them very much. But templates, you're just always you're always playing around it.
Yeah. So what I had brought up at the end of our internal discussion was how we would move forward with figuring out what our new templating syntax should look like, and putting effort towards it. What I proposed is that we set a date by which we'll accept proposals, or we'll want people to write up proposals for what a new syntax should look like, and how it should work. All of the details, kind of a well thought out proposal. And then after that date, whoever's on the core team can look at those proposals, and then we'll talk about it at the following contributors meeting, or we can start the discussions about it at the following contributors meeting.
Did you say a date, Jason?
No. So I wanted to maybe set a tentative one that's close to when we expect to be done with DoneJS 1, or have the code and guides and all of the supporting materials out the door, because we won't actually, I don't think we'll actually start working on this until DoneJS 1 is out the door. So I think it's fair to accept proposals until, I know this is what I wanted to discuss and bring up. Maybe like the first,
I would say second week of March.
Yeah,
that's probably around the right time.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is either set the date for either a Monday or a Friday, so that we would, if it's a Monday, we would start talking about them at the beginning or at the next contributors meeting on that Friday, or set it Friday, and then we'll just talk about them at a week later contributors meeting, so that we have plenty of time to review them and actually have like educated discussions about what's proposed. Does anyone have thoughts on this?
Sounds reasonable to me.
I think we already talked about this internally too. Is or someone, we just need to. I'll create an issue that is kind of a super issue that discusses the problems and what we just talked about, and then I think everybody else should create other issues, and then they can add as a comment like, here's this idea, but comments should kind of be related to the actual proposal, and not really in the like super issue, which should just mostly be just linking towards those other issues with like quick examples or something.
So the issues would be the proposals for other view or other templating things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm going to, just for now, as a tentative date, I'm going to say Friday, March 10th is when we'll want proposals in, and then we can start discussing them as early as the following contributors meeting on Friday, March 17th. Anyone have any thoughts or objections or anything?
So sorry, Adam.
I was just going to say, it seems really far away to me, but I guess you want to give time.
Yeah, there's no reason to make a decision until we're actually going to start putting effort behind it.
One other thing I wanted to mention that we talked about internally is that when we make the decision, or when we discuss the different proposals. If you have a working implementation, that obviously will help to sway people towards your thing. So if you're planning on submitting something, if you can make it work a little or work as much as you want, that would help.
Yeah.
This could be really nice because it could lead to like that whole. Oh, sorry, Matthew. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say this could be nice because it might lead to that whole thing where like you get this like swappable templating thing, you know, like it's like I don't really like that one, but I like this one. If there's like a bunch up there that like in the ecosystem or whatever, that might be cool.
We've kind of had this with EJS, Mustache, and Stash are all kind of more or less swappable. That the big challenge, and this is something that I do need to probably spend some time making sure anybody who's submitting a proposal is kind of fully aware of the integration points, because there's a lot, and I do think that would be really nice if you can swap your binding, you know, because we need to make it so it can work with other components, and that was kind of you can swap EJS with Mustache and Stash, but only Mustache and Stash work with components. So that's a big integration point that we'll need to make sure, you know, we allow for if we want to start supporting lots of different template engines.
Yeah, components work. I've tested that. There's a test in the repo. Yeah, and also I think another goal is like maybe you know, if we have 15 proposals, that's okay, but it might be better that if a few people have very similar ideas to collaborate with collaborations. It's definitely a plus, and I think that's a good thing to consider, you know, when we decide on one too.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be like 2 or 3 real possibilities, like I should say not possibilities, but flavors. There'll be a JavaScript-y based one. There'll be a HTML based one, and there'll be like, my guess would be like a Stashy one. Those would be what kind of come out.
Yeah, and just to put this out there, I wouldn't expect us to vote and go with one proposal. I think there's starting places for conversation, and we can kind of roughly vote, okay, here's the direction we want to go, and then hash out details. So yeah, I think that's just worth putting out there.
Cool.
All right. Julian, you brought up Steel Cache Bust. Do you want to bring that up?
Yeah, sure. So what was this cache bust? So we had a cache bust extension for Steel, and it's working on development mode, pretty good, but on production it doesn't work because it was loaded after Steel loaded the bundle, and then you doesn't get the bundled version with what's it called, query at the end. So yeah, I moved it into core, and then I talked with Justin and Matthew, and they brought up some thoughts. I can share my screen. So the first, what I did, I moved into core, and I made it that we can configure it, and then after that we talked about it, and we want to So there was ideas behind Steel Cache Bust. So what would be a good cache bust? So normally, and Matthew is right with that, normally you have not to cache bust, or you have not to you clean your cache with Steel Cache Bust. So it's a workaround, because normally you had to use your headers for expiring your versions or your your JavaScript files. So, but if you can't have access to your server, or you are on a shared host, so you have to use that workaround for that. And so it's working right now with the configuration. You can configure it like cache bust and use the key, and if you want to use also kind of version. But Justin bring up some ideas that is about can connect. So he wants to clean the local storage if a new version is bundled with Steel tools. So Matthew and I come up with the idea that we can put a build version number on each Steel production. So if you make a build with Steel tools, it will create on a dist folder a Steel production file, and this Steel production file is pre-configured with the main and some other stuffs, and maybe we can add the same Steel bundle version onto it, and it should have a hash, and the hash should be an MD5 hash of all the generated bundles, so that it's create a unique hash for the build, and if you rebuild it and you didn't change anything, it will generate the same hash. So it will not change the hash, and if you do that, it will not change the cache bust version, so it will not automatically clean the cache in the browser. So and if you change something in your JavaScript files, then the hash will regenerate it with a new hash, and it will add it to the query on the URL. So this was a thought about that, and I want to talk about if it's a way, or if other ideas are there, we have to think about it if you use Steel cache bust.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this is like an opt-in feature, not something that. Oh, could you still show your share screen? Well, okay, never mind. Never mind.
I shared the screen.
Well, yeah, it's good information to have. Yeah, so we were talking about how we can integrate this into the build a little bit. I want to make sure it's an opt-in everywhere you use it, because there are some downsides to doing this. We talked about like just automatically whenever you do a build, creating a build version number and like sticking that into Steel.
When you say this is opt-in, do you mean the cache busting, or do you mean like the build number, or do you mean both? Or the?
I mean both. Yeah.
What's the downside of just putting one little extra string?
It breaks the cache. So if like. So like Steel, if we like, so the idea here, the first line he has here is every time we do a build, we always create a new steel.production.js. And if we stick a new version number there, then steel.production.js is not going to be cached. It's always going to break its own cache. You know what I mean? Because it's going to change.
Ooh.
We're basically always modifying steel.production.js.
Why? But if you're using an MD5 hash, it would MD5 hash to the same thing.
No, it's an MD5 hash of all of your bundles is the idea that we had. Right? So like so basically steel.production.js, the way it is now, steel.production.js can be cached forever, basically.
Well, that's if you're not you're not merging anything. You're just talking about like the normal taking Steel and minifying it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would only change.
Well, it can change if you upgraded Steel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the difference here is it would upgrade basically every time you did a release, assuming you made any modifications to your content. So yeah, so I think it's reasonable that someone, that we have an option in Steel tools that's like include the build number. I don't know what's the best API for that. And part of me wonders that if we're integrating this in the Steel tools, maybe we could just implement all of this in the Steel tools, we can change the bundle names so that they would no longer be the same as the old bundle names. You can do that kind of thing too.
So wait, so just making sure the plan would be for the MD5 hash to be hashed off of the entire build, not just like your main. Yeah, because that's why I wrote in like little chat. I was like, what about for bundles?
Yeah, it's
have
basically
a change
looping.
if any source code changes.
Right. Yeah, we loop through all the bundles, creating MD5 from that. That's if there's a better idea. That's just the first one we had.
So, but Matthew, why do you think it's not okay to put always the bundle number into the steel production?
Because that's going to cause steel.production to be. It's going to bust the steel.production's cache.
Why do it in steel? That could you do it?
Why does it break? Why does it cache bust? I don't understand that.
Because there's a new. We're changing steel.production.
How about this? How about this, Matthew? I'm getting a little crazy, but for every bundle that you write out, you're going to have, for every bundle in the bundle, you're going to write out an individual like bundle hash, right? So for like app page A, if that's a bundle, you write that out, and then
you mean inside the bundle you put some type of hash for that bundle? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for the bundle, you do the hashes for the bundles, and then I'm just playing this through. I wonder if you could just then have a method or like a getter on steel that's effectively going to tell you, like, combine all of the bundles that have been loaded into one like super hash and return that for you to the user. That way, if steel production changes, who cares? Your main didn't change, who cares? But then once you load a bundle that's actually changed, well, then you would, at that point, if you start checking, I don't know.
But once the bundle loads, we have an old bundle. You know, you can't put the hash in the bundle. We have to know if the bundle changed before we load a bundle.
Why?
Because so that we know if we need to cache bust it or not.
Oh, I'm not talking about cache. I'm sorry. I'm more talking about for my use case than the cache bust use case. I'm just like.
Well, I think there's a lot of overlap here, so I think
there is a lot of overlap. But I guess what I'm getting at is if you don't want to do it, if you're worried about like you're always gonna have to reload steel, well then could you make it so that you're putting these hashes or something, or maybe steel like is able you write out to your main what but then your main is gonna have to load differently, but that's fine because maybe the bundles have changed. I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's a way to like federate this information so it's like not. It's just one number for your entire build, but it's a bunch of numbers for different bundles within your.
How would that help with your use case though? Do you don't care about individual bundle hashes, right? You just want to be like something changed. Let's just blow everything away.
Well, I guess the reason why it helps with the reason why I really would like is that this is not like I'm wondering if it's possible to not be optional. That this is just there, and that way, like if you're just using steel, there is maybe not a build number, but there's a bundles number, and then we can somehow use those. Because to me, there's not a problem like adding a string. Your use case is a problem. But like, if you just make it so it's related to the file, your hash, well, then there really isn't a problem. I mean, it's just like one string, No,
yeah, we could put it in the main bundle.
I don't know. I just wonder if there's an idea there where
I see what you're saying.
I wonder if there's an idea there where something could be, it could just be automatic there no matter what, and then it's something you can count on if you're using steel, so that I'm not going to have to also train people, hey, you want this utility, well, I mean, which isn't so bad, saying you want this can connect, steel cache buster, local storage reset, can connect behavior, make sure your steel has this flag set when you're doing a build. That's not onerous, but if there's a way to remove it, then that's always nice. But we can.
I understand your idea now. I think that's okay. Because if you just put the hash for each particular bundle, if it doesn't change, that particular bundle is going to come from the cache, which is what you want. So yeah,
the hard part is bringing that into like something that's going to clear the cache, like one value, especially if it's like you've loaded.
Well, if you opted in, then we would. If you opt in to the caching in the Steel tools, then we would mark that in Steel.production.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah, the idea has always been, or since me and Julian talked about it, there's kind of a dual thing. There's the version number that tools can use, but then there's also a possibility to use it for cache busting.
Yeah. Cool. I'm ready to put a pin in that, unless there's something else.
Julian, I can write up kind of what we've been talking about and go into a little bit in that issue, so maybe it'll be a little bit easier for you to follow along.
Yeah, you have to put it in the
we can discuss
don't
it
follow
some
all.
Okay.
I don't follow all your discussion. It's going crazy. So maybe you can.
We can talk about back and forth on the issue.
Some notes on that. But I don't understand why we can always write a build version number into Steel production, because if you change, then the user has downloaded once and it doesn't change for half a year. It comes from the cache browser, so from the browser cache. So it's only the user has only to download the Steel production file once if the build version number changed. So.
But Matthew's worried about, like, what if I just change this? What if there's like one part of the application that changes quite a bit, right? And that's in some bundle A. And then really it's bundle A is the only thing that's changing. Well, it's nice if people don't have to like reload, because I changed bundle A, they don't have to reload Steel production. They don't have to load bundle B, C, D, E.
Right.
They just have
Steel.production is the thing you want to load the fastest, because it's the thing that comes directly from the page, directly from the script tag.
Have you thought through this? Have you thought through this when you bundle Steel? Because I would imagine
thought about it. Yeah.
Is bundle Steel the default for?
No.
We still didn't do that. So you still load. There's always the double load.
What do you mean by that?
By default, if you just do a normal Steel build, you're going to load Steel production, and then you're going to start loading your actual bundles.
Yeah, right.
Which no one should actually do in production. Like a real world, there's no reason to ever do that, right?
For multi-page applications.
Multi pages, but not a single page. Yeah. Single page with one single main. There's no reason to ever do that.
Right. Probably not.
Okay.
So go ahead and put some comments.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'll get like some. Well, we'll have a chat later, and I can explain a little bit more, maybe some diagrams and stuff.
But maybe we can step by step. Maybe we can always build a version number there, and then we can enhancement our cache bus to use that. So I don't know if we put all together right now and then write a huge code base, and maybe we can go it step by step and release it and add some, because it's not a breaking change. We can add some features.
The existing one, you mean? The one that the client one that you did?
Yeah. Or do you think it's not okay to release a pre-version of our feature and it's not finished yet?
I'd like to go over the kind of the cost benefit a little, or not the cost benefit, but kind of the benefits, because there's a couple different approaches that we could do. We could do it all in Steel tools and just not even have the client side part. I don't know if that would be better. I'm not saying that it would. I'd like to write up so that maybe we can have a little bit more of a better conversation about what the strengths and benefits are of the different approaches we could take here.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else on this before we move on? All right. Justin, you had a couple topics. I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to say about the templating stuff, but you also posted about the GitHub content security policy. So you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, I made a can parse library, which does nothing right now, but hopefully I built it as a replacement for there's a bug in can view parse, where if you have a you have a template with that looks like an attribute that looks like something like this. It does not like that. So I started about fixing that, and I realized like I hated how can view parse works, because it's like it's kind of a traditional, like if you were to write, you know, a parser in kind of a for loop situation yourself, it's not, it's kind of cumbersome and tricky to deal with these kind of situations. So what I wanted to build is something, I looked at JSON. I looked a little bit online to try to see like what's, you know, things that make parsers a little bit easier to build in JavaScript, and I found a lot of inspiration in this project. I didn't use this project because what it does is it requires a build. Like this is going to produce. I'm actually going to. I want to do some testing eventually, because I wrote mine in a way that should be extremely fast, but this potentially is going to be faster, because what this does is it actually writes out JavaScript code. It actually like builds a it generates an actual like parser source code. But you can use the parse on its own. But this, you know, if we wanted to parse like stash templates or something like that, we'd have to write our lexical rules, our grammar, and then build every time to get our output thing, which just seemed unnecessary. And this can do a lot more than my parser needs to be able to do. So I wrote this. I would actually encourage people, like if you're just interested, because it's so relatively small, like especially compared to JSON or whatever, and it's inline commented. It's a really good, I think, learning tool if you just want to learn some basics of parsing. And the nice thing about this is that when I minified this came out a little bit under 1K, and then the actual grammar for a stash template that looks like, you know, I did my test, which kind of starts here. This is actually like, you know, half a K, a little bit more maybe. And so that can view parse was about 2.3K, and this kind of tallies up to about 1.4K, this plus the actual parser. So actually almost like almost a kilobyte I saved because I wrote a generic parser, and this will work much better. So I'm pretty happy with that. This is related to all of the template stuff that we're doing, because, well, if you wanted to build a little, if you wanted to go down the parsing route and you didn't want to go through something like a Sprima, if you wanted something a little bit more simple to start with, this would be an alternative. So that's that.
So what will it produce? Can parse. What is the return value of the parser? Okay, so you pass in an expression. So you say your lexical. You identify what your lexical tokens are. Right. So these are the possible pieces, and then you define your expression. Your expression. So this is what an expressions can be. They can be tag, a closing tag, a magic tag, or they can be the same things followed by another expression. And you can just write it all out. And then right now I think it's gonna take a callback, which I actually haven't done, but you basically pass your grammar to the parse function. That gives you a parser. You pass it a string, and you'll pass it an object of callbacks, kind of like CanView parser, and it's gonna call back and let you know when every expression type has started and ended. And with that, then you can build whatever, you can build whatever you want. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was just saw an interesting post. And that's actually like one thing that I think we could do here, which I think is fun. I did this once before, which is just to bring up interesting things we see on the internets.
and I saw, where, let me find it. I saw GitHub CSP journey post, and just talks about like everything that they're doing to prevent cross-site forgery or script injection attacks. I mean, and I guess they started doing it 4 years ago. They started it, which is crazy. And now this is like an update on everything they're doing to prevent cross-site injection attacks. And I just
Is there
thought,
anything you thought? I saw this. I didn't actually get to read it. Is there anything that you?
Well, there's just a lot that, like, I mean, part of it was like maybe for Steele because we know, you know, especially for when you add a CDN, we know like where our JavaScript code is. I wonder if we could do some things by default with our server-side rendering, or I don't know. I didn't, to be honest, get into it super much. I didn't read this article, which is like what they've done new. I more read like their old article, which is a little bit easier to get into because it's not like 4 years of ideas haven't been put, like advanced techniques. But I think this is an important, I guess I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's an important thing that we could help people with, get right. Especially because the first article talks about like, it does a good job of scaring you and how like it's so hard to prevent these things. So
first step of CSP is no eval. So I know Steele does eval currently, so we'd have to fix that. I don't know if we do eval anywhere else.
Not in Stash anymore. No. Well, we do in development mode, but we don't in.
Do we? So like for like when the can construct stuff, is that not
only
happening?
Only in development mode.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's not even in development mode. I think we changed it to new function.
That's still eval.
Yeah, it still gets blocked by CSP.
Yeah. You can't do any eval. You can't inject a script. It's not just eval function.
Oh, so new function doesn't work?
Right.
Yeah.
That can be removed. So I for a long time we didn't do that in development, but I think there was like a bug, and I think Brad might have made it work. So anyway, I'm fine regressing on that because I never thought it was like an important issue to fix to begin with.
Yeah, it might be a good thing to like to kind of examine.
Oh, we know we remove it gets removed in production. We just switched to.
Okay.
It does new function in development, but you can see this gets pulled in production. So.
Right.
CanJS should be fine.
Okay.
I think we eval something in like the legacy view helpers too.
Oh yeah, but that's I'm not counting that.
It's yeah, we should like maybe do like a little audit and see where we can make improvements.
No, well, someone audited CanJS on this, and that's why.
That was a while back, right?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But I mean, that's why Stash doesn't use eval. A big part of it.
Yeah.
It avoids it. So.
I think it'd be pretty easy to make Steele not use eval for production, because I feel like the way we have it set up now is you don't need it.
Yeah. The other thing that just quick to bring up is Matthew and I talked about rollup and how it's able to remove all of like the extra cruft around every module in a build. And Matthew, I don't remember, after we talked, like I remember when we talked, you said that rollup doesn't support modules, but I think we figured out a way that it could.
That's right. Yeah, we came up with an idea. So Julian had brought up. I think it's called tree shaking is the technique that it uses. Julian had brought that up as a possible thing for Steele.
Tree shaking is different than that though.
Oh well.
Tree shaking.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's different. It's different from So what rollup does is all modules kind of exist within their own closure. You can think of it that way. So rollup removes all the closures. So your code is just like if you did it the ugly way, where you just jammed everything into one file. That's what rollup does. So it prevents a bunch of function calls, which is cool. But the downside of that is that because there are no closures, there are no there's no way to know what a module is. It removes the idea of modules from it. But it does, every module has some type of export, so that we could potentially, if we wanted to try to implement this kind of thing, there is a way where we could define what this module's value is, and that's what's needed in order to do progressive loading.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it made me rethink. So Steel has a RFC for a minimal production loader, and it made me curious.
So I would say that is more important than tree shaking, because tree shaking actually could be much more important, but I think because we are not on a general basis importing a lot of huge collections that are written in ES6, because they have to be written in ES6, and only using a few pieces of it, until there's a lot of libraries being published that way for consumption, I think that the removing module stuff would benefit people more.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
If we were to prioritize one, I would prioritize that over tree shaking. Until tree shaking, definitely we start prioritizing big if there's a Lodash ES6 mono.
There is a Lodash ES6 mono file. Lodash ES. Lodash ES. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so then this becomes a little more important.
For Steel, I think the priority is
everything in their own modules, though, right?
There's a bunch of different builds for Lodash.
Yeah.
One of them is Lodash-ES, which is what you're talking about, where you it's a big mono, whatever, but you import what you need. But then there's also the other one, the regular one, where you can import what you need in various ways. And then they also do absolutely every individual module too.
Yeah,
he does it in all sorts of ways. That guy, he's crazy in a good way.
Yeah, cool.
All right, that's all for me.
Sweet. I don't think anyone else posted any topics. Does anyone else have anything that they want to bring up before we sign off? Nope. All right. Oh, go ahead, Julian.
One question. So we talk about because it's related to Stash sometimes. We talk about our custom elements. How is that growing? I see Justin and Matthew talk about it on some issue, I thought. So I would like to see that on CanJS. So it's a very huge idea behind that. I like that.
Yeah, so what I would do, I think someone needs to just create another project called Can Element or something. I don't know. And what I would experiment with is making it so you can add can define to an element's prototype. So all of those properties, and then the really cool thing about that is if our view models were the actual elements themselves, is that we only need one binding syntax. We don't need that. Unfortunately, everything would start with $1, but you would never need to bind to a view model, which would simplify things a lot. And then that would open the doors for other, just standard web components would work alongside our stuff fine. CanJS would have the view and the bindings into the DOM, but then really what we are exporting are anybody could actually use. If you think about it, the inner content would be rendered with Stash or whatever, but the outer element itself is just like an element to be like kind of put in the page. I don't know. I think just someone needs to like spend a weekend hacking around it for fun. And
The issue that you're talking about, Julian, is in can-view callbacks, which can-view callbacks is the thing that Stash uses to like whenever, so that it knows when it finds a custom component. So when you call component.extend, it like registers itself with can-view callbacks. So in order to register these things as web components, we need to, there'd be some other module or other package that would do that integration, and it needs to know like what are all the registered tags so it can register them with the web components. That makes sense.
I wonder if that's actually how it will end up working. Just because
What do you mean?
It's going to be hard for me to articulate, but my guess is that there's already kind of a registration mechanism for registering custom elements.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, like, are making it so that if you want to use, I'm not sure that I think what will happen is you'll use can element and it will register itself with can tag and with obviously the DOM's like real registry of custom elements. I'm not sure.
You mean a different entry point for instead of you're saying you would not use can component, potentially you would use
I would use
something else.
But I would make it so that our stuff can of course use custom can elements. But my guess is what would happen is that components, you could use components in a CanJS world, but I don't know if we, as a design goal, if it's important to make components work like as web components. I would probably just make our stuff, our new can element or whatever it is, or can web component or something like that those are like native components, and they can also work if people are in CanJS fill, but old can components, I guess I wouldn't start with making those work as web components. I would just start making a CanJS-ified version of web component that can work everywhere. I think it's just easier. It might be possible to do both, but I would just start with getting one to work.
The downside is that if you want to write a web component app and you want to use bit tabs, bit tabs uses component.extend, so you wouldn't be able to do that.
You'd have to use can element.extend or something, or you
just couldn't use can components,
which sucks. But what are the chances that, like, if people really want that, I would make the assumption that can element and can component would be relatively similar in terms of like, how they look and how, like, I think it would be migratable relatively easy. I don't know. I would just to me, if it were me starting it, I would just experiment and make it so that like there is a observable prototype basically for those custom elements, and they're gonna know how to render a subtemplate, even if without the shadow DOM. I would just ignore the shadow DOM because, I mean, is there support there anywhere for that yet?
Yes, there's more support for shadow DOM than there is for custom elements. Yes.
Are you serious?
I think that's about to change, though, right? I think everybody's got custom elements coming down the pipe, and
shadow DOM is in Safari, in stable Safari. It's in stable Chrome.
With
yes,
slots or with content?
The slots.
The slots one, the V1.
Okay.
Custom elements is in Chrome, and it's in Safari's technology.
How do you have a shadow DOM without a custom element? What does that mean?
You can
shadow DOM there. Yeah, you can add a shadow DOM to a div if you want.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I don't know why you would necessarily, but you can.
There's been lots of reasons. It's mostly for the style encapsulation, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
Okay, sure. We can make it. We can make our template render into the shadow DOM. Sure.
But I think it's a good point that it might be for experimentation's sake, or just because.
Just to get something working.
To get something working, to forget about. There's a huge problem with Stash is that well, it's not a huge problem, but it's a problem here is that stash creates an element, it creates a fragment, so it has it creates elements, and you don't want that with web components necessarily. Or it's a problem with the way can component work, I should say. Anyways, I can get into the weeds here, but yeah. I guess I agree that it might be easier just to create something that with a new API. So, yeah.
Because really I don't know. We'll have to. I think someone just needs to try something. So, anyways, anything else?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Thank you guys for joining. For anyone who's watching on the live stream or on YouTube, thanks for watching, and talk to you guys next week.
Believe in yourself. You can do anything.
Bye.
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 Bye.